The scent hit me like a fist to the chest, sharp and foreign, clinging to Ezra's jacket as he stepped through the door of our Brooklyn apartment. My vision blurred, not from tears but from the primal rage surging through me, an alpha's instinct screaming that my betrothed Omega carried another's mark. I froze, my hand gripping the edge of the kitchen counter, the world narrowing to that single, unbearable truth. It was October, the air crisp with the promise of change, but nothing could have prepared me, Caleb Voss, for this betrayal. Ezra, my Ezra, with his soft curls and hazel eyes that always seemed to see straight through me, stood there, oblivious to the storm brewing in my chest. He smiled, tired but warm, tossing his keys onto the table like it was any other evening. "Long day at the gallery," he said, his voice light, unaware of the scent, musky, aggressive, unmistakably alpha, that lingered on him like a stain. "Whose scent is that?" My voice was low, a growl I barely recognized. Ezra's smile faltered, his brows knitting together as he tilted his head, confused. "What are you talking about, Caleb?" he asked, stepping closer, his hand reaching for me. I stepped back, the space between us suddenly a chasm. The scent wasn't just on his jacket. It was on his skin, woven into the fabric of who he was to me. My Omega, promised to me since we were teenagers, now carried the mark of another. I was 26, broad-shouldered, with a temper I'd spent years taming as a firefighter in Bed-Stuy. Ezra, 24, was an artist, his gentle demeanor a counterpoint to my intensity. We'd built a life together, a fragile balance of my protective instincts and his quiet strength. But that scent, sharp, like cedar and iron, threatened to shatter everything. "Don't lie to me," I said, my fists clenching. "I can smell him on you." Ezra's eyes widened, a flash of panic crossing his face. "Caleb, it's not what you think," he stammered, his hands raised as if to calm a wild animal. But I wasn't listening. The alpha in me roared, drowning out reason. I grabbed his wrist, pulling him close, searching his eyes for answers he wasn't giving. "Who is he?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mix of fury and fear. "It's nobody," Ezra said, his voice breaking. "I swear, Caleb, it's not what you're thinking. I was at the gallery, and—" He stopped, biting his lip, his eyes darting away. That hesitation was a knife to my gut. I let go of his wrist, stepping back, my chest heaving. "You're lying," I said, the words tasting like ash. "You're mine, Ezra. You've always been mine." He flinched, not from fear, but from the weight of my claim. "I am yours," he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. "But you don't own me, Caleb. You don't get to accuse me without listening." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But the scent was undeniable, a taunt to every instinct that bound me to him. I turned away, unable to look at him, my hands raking through my dark hair. "Get it off you," I said, my voice cold. "Now." Ezra stood frozen, his breath hitching. "Caleb, please," he said, but I was already moving, grabbing my jacket and heading for the door. "Where are you going?" he called after me, his voice cracking with desperation. I didn't answer. The door slammed behind me, the sound echoing in the hollow space where trust used to live. The streets of Brooklyn were alive with noise, honking cabs, laughter from a nearby bar, but it all faded to a dull roar in my ears. I walked, my boots pounding the pavement, trying to outrun the scent that clung to my memory. Ezra and I had been together for 6 years, ever since we were kids in Syracuse, dreaming of a life bigger than our small town. He was my Omega, my future, the one I'd sworn to protect. But now, doubt gnawed at me, sharp and relentless. I ended up at a dive bar on Atlantic Avenue, the kind of place where nobody asked questions. The bartender, a grizzled beta named Sal, slid a whiskey across the counter without a word. I downed it, the burn doing little to dull the ache. Who was this other alpha? Why was his scent on Ezra? My mind spun with images I didn't want to see. Ezra laughing with someone else, his hand brushing another's, his scent mingling with a stranger's. My phone buzzed in my pocket, Ezra's name lighting up the screen. I ignored it, ordering another drink. But the third call broke through my haze. His voice, when I answered, was raw, pleading. "Caleb, come home. Please. Let me explain." "Explain what?" I snapped, my voice louder than I intended. Heads turned in the bar, but I didn't care. "That you let some alpha get close enough to mark you? That you forgot about me? It's not like that," he said, his voice thick with tears. "I'm begging you, just come back. I need you to hear me out." I hung up, my hand shaking. I wanted to believe him, but the scent was a wall between us, unyielding and cruel. I paid my tab and stepped back into the night, the cold air biting at my skin. I didn't go home. Instead, I wandered, my thoughts a tangled mess of love and betrayal. By dawn, I found myself at the Brooklyn Bridge, the city waking up around me. The skyline glittered, indifferent to my turmoil. I leaned against the railing, my breath visible in the chilly air, and thought of Ezra's face, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the way he'd curl into me on cold nights. I loved him, more than I'd ever loved anything. But love wasn't enough if trust was gone. I pulled out my phone, staring at his last message. "I'm still here, Caleb. I'm not going anywhere." My thumb hovered over the reply button, but I couldn't find the words. Instead, I shoved the phone back in my pocket and started walking, not knowing where I was going. Only that I couldn't face him. Not yet. The scent lingered in my mind, a ghost I couldn't shake. But somewhere, beneath the anger and hurt, a small voice whispered that Ezra was still mine. I just had to find a way to believe it. The gallery where Ezra worked was a sleek, modern space in Williamsburg, all glass walls and polished concrete floors. By noon the next day, I stood outside, my hands shoved deep in my pockets, watching through the window as Ezra moved among the paintings. He was arranging a new exhibit, his movements graceful but tense, like he could feel the weight of last night's fight. I hadn't gone home. I'd crashed at a friend's place, avoiding Ezra's calls, but the pull to see him was stronger than my pride. Inside, the gallery was quiet, the kind of hushed reverence that made every sound feel like an intrusion. Ezra didn't notice me at first, his focus on a canvas splashed with bold reds and blues. He wore a navy sweater, the sleeves rolled up, exposing the delicate lines of his wrists. My chest ached at the sight of him, so familiar, yet marked by that damned scent. "Ezra," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. He startled, nearly dropping the frame he was holding. His eyes met mine, wide and searching, a mix of relief and fear. "Caleb," he breathed, setting the frame down carefully. "You came. I need answers," I said, stepping closer, my boots echoing on the floor. The gallery was empty, save for a beta intern in the back, too far to hear us. "Who was it, Ezra? And don't lie to me again." He swallowed, his throat bobbing. "It was Julian," he said, the name hitting me like a punch. Julian Torres, an alpha artist whose work Ezra had been raving about for weeks. I'd never met him, but I'd seen his paintings, dark, intense, like the man himself, from what Ezra had said. He was here late last night, helping with the exhibit. We were moving canvases, and he got too close. Too close. My voice was sharp, my hands clenching at my sides. "His scent is all over you, Ezra. That doesn't happen from moving canvases." Ezra's face flushed, his eyes darting away. "He's intense," he admitted, his voice low. "He's been pushing boundaries, Caleb. Not just with me, with everyone here. But I didn't encourage it. I swear I didn't." "Then why didn't you tell him to back off?" I demanded, stepping closer, my height looming over him. Ezra didn't flinch, but his eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I tried," he said, his voice breaking. "I told him I'm with you, that I'm yours. But he's relentless. He doesn't take no for an answer." The alpha in me wanted to tear through the city, find Julian, and make him regret ever looking at Ezra. But the man in me, the one who loved Ezra more than life, saw the pain in his eyes, the way his hands trembled. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, softer now, the anger giving way to something rawer. "I was scared," Ezra admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want you to think what you're thinking now. I didn't want to lose you." I reached for him, my hand hovering before settling on his shoulder. His warmth grounded me, but the scent, fainter now, but still there, kept me on edge. "You're not going to lose me," I said, the words heavy with conviction. "But I need to know everything, Ezra. No more secrets." He nodded, his eyes locked on mine. "I'll tell you everything," he said. "But not here. Tonight at home. Please, Caleb, come back." I wanted to say yes, to pull him into my arms and erase the distance between us. But the scent, the doubt, still lingered. "I'll be there," I said finally, my voice tight. But this isn't over. That evening, I walked into our apartment, the familiar scent of Ezra's lavender candles mingling with the tension in the air. He was waiting on the couch, his knees drawn up, a mug of tea cradled in his hands. He looked small, vulnerable, and it took everything in me not to cross the room and hold him. "Julian's been at the gallery for a month," Ezra began, his voice steady but soft. "He's talented, charismatic, and he's an alpha. He's used to getting what he wants. Last night, we were working late, and he brushed against me. On purpose, I think. His scent stuck, and I didn't realize how strong it was until I got home." "Did he touch you?" I asked, my voice low, dangerous. Ezra shook his head quickly. "Not like that," he said. "But he's been suggestive. Comments, looks, standing too close. I've been trying to keep it professional, but he's not making it easy." "Why didn't you quit?" I asked, frustration creeping back. "If he's crossing lines, why stay?" Ezra's eyes flashed with defiance. "Because I love my job, Caleb. I've worked too hard to let some arrogant alpha ruin it for me. I thought I could handle it." I paced the room, my mind racing. Julian wasn't just a threat to our relationship. He was a threat to Ezra's safety, his autonomy. "I'm going to the gallery tomorrow," I said, my tone final. "I'm meeting this Julian myself." Ezra stood, his mug clattering onto the table. "Caleb, no. You can't just storm in there. You'll make it worse." "Worse?" I rounded on him, my voice rising. "He's marking my omega, Ezra. You think I'm just going to sit here and let that happen?" "He's not marking me," Ezra shouted, his voice cracking with emotion. "I'm yours, Caleb. I've always been yours. But you have to trust me to handle this." I stopped, my breath heavy, caught in the intensity of his gaze. He was right. I had to trust him. But trust was a fragile thing, and Julian's scent had cracked it. "I'll trust you," I said finally, my voice low. "But I'm still going. I need to see him for myself." Ezra's shoulders slumped, but he nodded. "Okay," he said softly. "But promise me you won't do anything stupid." I didn't answer. I couldn't make that promise. Not yet. The gallery buzzed with energy the next afternoon, a crowd of art enthusiasts milling about for Julian's exhibit opening. I stood in the corner, my arms crossed, my eyes fixed on the man at the center of it all. Julian Torres was everything I'd feared, tall, lean, with sharp cheekbones and a swagger that screamed alpha. His dark hair fell artfully over his forehead, and his smile was calculated, charming the crowd as he talked about his work. But his eyes kept drifting to Ezra, who was across the room, arranging a display. Ezra hadn't seen me yet, his focus on his work, but I saw the way Julian watched him, like a predator sizing up prey. My blood boiled, my alpha instincts screaming to close the distance and put Julian in his place. But I held back, remembering Ezra's plea. I wasn't here to start a fight. Not yet. I moved through the crowd, blending in, my firefighter's build drawing a few glances, but no real attention. I stopped near a painting, pretending to study it, my ears tuned to Julian's conversation with a group of buyers. "Ezra's been invaluable," he said, his voice smooth, dripping with charm. "He has an eye for art, a real passion. I'm lucky to have him." The words were innocent enough, but the way he said them, the way his scent, cedar and iron, carried across the room, made my skin crawl. He was staking a claim, subtle but deliberate, and I wasn't the only one who noticed. A beta curator nearby raised an eyebrow, glancing at Ezra, who was oblivious, focused on adjusting a light. I couldn't take it anymore. I crossed the room, my steps deliberate, until I was at Ezra's side. He looked up, startled, his hazel eyes widening. "Caleb," he whispered, his voice a mix of relief and warning. "What are you doing?" "Meeting your friend," I said, my eyes locked on Julian, who had noticed me now. His smile didn't falter, but his eyes narrowed, assessing me. I stepped forward, extending a hand. "Caleb Voss," I said, my voice steady but laced with challenge. "Ezra's fiancé." Julian's smile tightened, but he took my hand, his grip firm. "Julian Torres," he said. "I've heard a lot about you. Ezra speaks highly of his partner." The pause was deliberate, a jab at my claim. "I'm sure he does," I said, my grip tightening briefly before I let go. "He's good at his job. Doesn't need anyone overstepping to make it harder." Julian's eyes flashed, but his smile held. "I wouldn't dream of it," he said, his tone too smooth. "Ezra's a professional. We all respect that here." The lie hung between us, thick and heavy. Ezra shifted beside me, his hand brushing my arm, a silent plea to back off. But I couldn't, not when Julian's scent was still in the air, a challenge to everything I was. The rest of the event passed in a blur of tension. I stayed close to Ezra, my presence a silent warning to Julian, who kept his distance but never stopped watching. By the time the crowd thinned, my patience was fraying. Ezra pulled me into a quiet corner, his voice low. "You didn't have to do that," he said, his eyes searching mine. "I told you I can handle him." "Can you?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "Because it doesn't look like he's backing off, Ezra. He's marking you, and you're letting it happen." Ezra's face hardened, his voice rising. "I'm not letting anything happen, Caleb. I'm doing my job. You think I want this? You think I like feeling caught between you and him?" "Then quit," I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "If he's crossing lines, walk away. We'll figure it out." Ezra laughed, bitter and sharp. "And what, Caleb? Give up everything I've worked for because some alpha can't control himself? Or because you can't trust me to handle it?" His words hit like a slap, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. He was right. I was letting my instincts override my faith in him. But the scent, the doubt, was a poison I couldn't shake. "I trust you," I said finally, my voice low. "But I don't trust him. And I'm not losing you to someone like that." Ezra's eyes softened, but before he could respond, Julian's voice cut through the air. "Ezra, I need your input on the lighting for tomorrow," he said, standing too close, his scent overwhelming. I stepped between them, my body a barrier. "He's busy," I said, my voice a low growl. Julian raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "Is he?" he asked, his eyes flicking to Ezra. "Or are you speaking for him?" The room seemed to shrink, the air thick with tension. Ezra grabbed my arm, his voice urgent. "Caleb, stop. Please." But I couldn't stop. Not when Julian's scent was a challenge, a claim on what was mine. I stepped closer, my voice low and dangerous. "Stay away from him," I said, "or I'll make you." Julian's smile was cold, predatory. "We'll see," he said, turning away, leaving the threat hanging in the air. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Ezra moving quietly in the kitchen, the clink of dishes a soft counterpoint to the storm still raging in my chest. I hadn't slept well, my dreams haunted by Julian's smirk, his scent, the way he'd looked at Ezra like he was something to be won. I rolled out of bed, my body aching from tension, and found Ezra at the stove, making pancakes, his way of trying to mend things. "Caleb," he said, glancing over his shoulder, his voice cautious. "Can we talk? Really talk?" I nodded, sitting at the table, my hands clasped tightly. "I'm listening," I said, forcing myself to stay calm. Ezra set a plate in front of me, his movements deliberate, like he was bracing for a fight. "I'm quitting the gallery," he said, his voice steady but heavy. "I thought I could handle Julian, but I can't. Not if it's tearing us apart." I stared at him, my heart twisting. "Ezra, you don't have to." "I do," he interrupted, his eyes fierce. "I love my job, but I love you more. I won't let him come between us. But you have to meet me halfway, Caleb. You have to trust me." His words were a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge. I reached for his hand, my thumb brushing over his knuckles. "I trust you," I said, the words raw and honest. "I'm sorry I let my instincts take over. I can't lose you." "You won't," Ezra said, his voice soft but firm. He leaned across the table, his lips brushing mine, a quiet promise. For the first time since that scent hit me, I felt like I could breathe. But peace was short-lived. That afternoon, I got a call from the gallery's manager, a beta named Lila. "Caleb, you need to come down here," she said, her voice tight. "It's Ezra. He's not okay." I was out the door before she finished, my heart pounding as I raced to Williamsburg. When I arrived, the gallery was chaos. People shouting, canvases knocked over. In the center of it all was Ezra, his face pale, his shirt torn at the shoulder. Julian stood nearby, his lip bleeding, a security guard holding him back. "What the hell happened?" I roared, pushing through the crowd to Ezra's side. He was shaking, his eyes wide with shock. "Caleb," he whispered, clinging to me. He tried to force his scent on me. I pushed him away, but he wouldn't stop. Rage consumed me, red-hot and blinding. I turned on Julian, my fists clenched, ready to tear him apart. But Ezra's hand on my arm stopped me. "Don't," he said, his voice trembling but firm. "He's not worth it." Julian smirked, even with blood on his face. "You can't keep him leashed forever, Voss," he said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "He's an Omega. He'll choose what he wants." I lunged, my fist connecting with his jaw before anyone could stop me. Julian staggered, the crowd gasping, but I didn't care. I hit him again, my knuckles splitting, until the security guard pulled me back. "Enough," Ezra shouted, his voice cutting through the haze. "Caleb, stop." I froze, my chest heaving. Julian crumpled on the floor. Ezra's eyes were on me, pleading, not for himself, but for me, for us. I stepped back, my hands shaking, the fight draining out of me. "I'm done," I said, my voice hoarse. "Let's go home." We left the gallery, Ezra's hand in mine, the crowd parting around us. The air outside was cold, but Ezra's warmth was enough. We didn't speak until we were back in Brooklyn, sitting on our couch, the weight of the day settling around us. "I'm sorry," I said finally, my voice breaking. "I should have trusted you from the start." Ezra shook his head, his hand cupping my face. "You fought for me, Caleb. Not just today, but every day. That's why I love you." I pulled him close, his scent, clean, familiar, mine, washing away the last traces of Julian's mark. "You're my Omega," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "And I'm yours. Always." Ezra smiled, his eyes bright with tears. "Always," he echoed. And in that moment, I knew we'd face whatever came next together. The days that followed were quiet, a healing kind of quiet. Ezra found a new job at a smaller gallery in Dumbo, one where his talent shone without the shadow of someone like Julian. I took time off work, spending my days with him, rebuilding what we'd almost lost. We walked the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset, the city sprawling beneath us, and I realized that love wasn't just about claiming. It was about choosing, every day, to stand by each other. Julian disappeared from our lives, his exhibit canceled, his reputation tarnished. But he didn't matter anymore. What mattered was Ezra's hand in mine, the way he laughed when I teased him, the way he looked at me like I was his whole world. We were stronger for it, our bond forged in fire, unbreakable. One night, as we lay in bed, Ezra traced the scar on my knuckle from that day at the gallery. "You didn't have to knock him down," he said softly, a smile in his voice. I kissed his forehead, pulling him closer. "Yeah, I did," I said. "You're worth fighting for." And in the quiet of our apartment, with the city humming outside, I knew that no scent, no rival, could ever take him from me. Ezra was mine, not because I claimed him, but because we chose each other, fiercely, irrevocably, every single day.